Yo, my peoples, what's up? Jason here with the One Stop Co-op Shop. I have a playthrough for you, a tutorial Kickstarter preview playthrough of Mythwind. If you're interested in the project, whether it is before, during, or after the Kickstarter campaign, there will be a link to it in the show notes in case you want to connect and learn more. But this one is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game in which you are going to be building. And this is a straight up building game in the style of The Sims or Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing. Very unique in the space. It is not going to culminate in some big bad enemy. You will not have a whole bunch of losses and ravaging of the village. As a matter of fact, it is quite the serene experience where you'll be populating this entire area with buildings, but you are going to be doing so with a lot of Euro interactions, lots of different characters. I would be very happy to show you the tutorial in just a minute. But I want to tell you about the One Stop Co-op Shop. We are a gaming empire. We have the YouTube, which you're on right now. We would very much appreciate if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, take those couple of extra seconds. It really does help us with visibility, connecting with publishers and connecting with gamers so that we can get all this stuff connected and get word about excellent games, old and new, out to you. We also have our streaming channel, so go ahead and check out YouTube Streamed, where we have a lot of the latest and greatest, and also older games as well, where we feature on our live streaming channel. You can go check that out. We have a podcast twice a week. As a matter of fact, there is a preview podcast of this very game where the designer, Brendan McCaskill, or one of the designers, breaks down everything that you're going to see. So if you learn games that way, you would rather hear the designer talk about it. Or if you want to do both, watch the tutorial and listen to a podcast about it, please go feel free. That is on the One Stop Co-op Shop podcast feed, once again, twice a week. We also have our Discord, the center of our community. It is completely free. Lots of solo and cooperative lovers who are on the Discord. You can join our Patreon. We would appreciate the support. That would grant you access to extra tiers in the Discord, but it's free to join most of the conversations. Please stop by, join our community for the One Stop Co-op Shop, your one stop for solo and cooperative gaming goodness. All right, so I would usually do a somewhat thorough run-through of rules, but because this is a tutorial playthrough where there's a very limited section of the game available, which is styled in terms of instructing rules, I will allow the tutorial to share a lot of the rules. What I want to do now with this overview is just basically give a sense of game flow, what the game looks like from turn to turn and also feels like. So here is your mini. And there are a couple of these minis. I showed a picture of those earlier in the video. You are going to be, for your first action of the turn, going somewhere in the town and placing your mini worker placement style in order to do some kind of thing. You can place it here and have adventures, which there are adventures that will come out of this deck. You can also place it down here, and that is how you will build these buildings. And I have a very limited selection of buildings, but there will be tons of buildings available. There will be simple buildings and then buildings that combo off each other, replacements so that you can, if you have one building, you have a small bank, you can build like a bigger bank. If you have a cabin, you can build a log house, or, there will be that kind of opportunity to mold your village, and that is going to be here as you manage the different projects that you're going to be building. And you also have a space over here in which you're going to be able to manipulate how much stuff you have. The resources are production, wood over here, and then culture, and then food. I think this is just kind of general resources. This is the wood symbol. Please keep in mind this is all prototype. So much of this is subject to change. So these laser cut pieces will definitely be laser cut as the campaign moves on. So then you think of a game like Scythe, where you take an action, and then there will be a second action connected to it. And in terms of the turn-by-turn decision-making, you want to consider both actions when you are making your turn. So depending on where you go, let's say I had taken the adventure, then I would look at my player space. And if I took the adventure, trust me, these two match up. Even though the colors don't, the symbols at least do. So if I went over here, then I would trigger some kind of effect. And I'll explain what the crafter does in just a second, but just in terms of general game flow, Taking an action anywhere will trigger a concomitant effect on your character. So then I would be able to do that, which is another one of her skills. She's a crafter, so she's going to be making lots and lots of items. So double actions, you can think of it as a top and a bottom action that go together that need to be managed if you want to build your village the most efficiently. I will get into how the crafter works as I move through the tutorial. What I wanted to show in this overview is that the characters are highly asymmetric. So the common action, that first action, is going to be common amongst the players, but then that second action is going to vary widely among the different players. So the crafter is going to be working on materials as they move through this kind of workshop area. You also have a farmer who is very, very different. They have the polyominoes, and then so you could put that on there. So as you gather different resources, you'll be able to move that over there, and the different resources need to be connected to each other, and or different resources need to be separate. The same resources need to be together. So there's going to be a point where you're going to have to manage that. Just like here, you have decisions about when you finish the crafting item, what you do with it. Between turns, you'll have to deal with a couple of effects. You have a weather deck, which will set conditions for the round. I'll show you that over here. So these have normally just symbols. So you have rain and wind to deal with, and whatever happens is going to depend on other elements in the game. So there's going to be some interactions between symbols. And then you have ye olde event deck. So then I will show you a sample event over here. It will tell you all sorts of things that will happen from turn to turn. Show you a couple more. So you might get some things from there. You might have some choices. This is one that I wanted to show off because it really shows off how the centrality of the event deck and how the game kind of responds to your choices. So then you're going to have a lot of text, and then you're going to see something like this. If you have certain production, if you played a production-heavy game, then you're going to shuffle certain events. If you have a culture-heavy game, you're going to shuffle in other events. So as you mechanically influence the world, you are going to mold the event deck, and the story is going to branch off in different areas. That does a couple of things. First of all, your choices matter. You might think that a open-ended game like this doesn't have a or is more of a story-based game where your choices just kind of like doing stuff. Not quite. Once you do make choices, you will wall things off, and you are going to be set off on certain story paths. So that does create a little bit of challenge. And as you move through the later parts of the game, you are going to have achievements that you can achieve. And because of these branching paths, you're not going to be able to achieve every achievement on one playthrough. So then aside from making your individual choices matter in terms of how you build your settlement, it does create that replayability so that if you build your settlement a certain way and you get to a culmination point that you're happy with, you can reset, play with a different character, play a different style, and build your city a whole different way. And the game will have capacity to be able to give you more options, show different story paths and mechanical options on different repeated playthroughs. All right, so we're ready to begin our tutorial playthrough. It is important to note that every character is going to have a crafter journal, and this has a script for what to do for your first 7 days of a potential tutorial playthrough. At the end of the tutorial, you're going to wipe away what you did and then be ready to go. But for the purposes of this particular playthrough, I am going to be reading, day 1, and then moving on and doing what the book says. And then day 2, day 3. It will tell me exactly what to do. Hold my hand in terms of teaching the game, and by the time you're finished with your 7th day, have enough of a grasp of the basic rules and go get started with your own particular playthrough. So for day 1, and every day, the beginning of every day is going to be turning over the top card of the weather deck. As you can see, we have tutorial 1, 2, 3. So the first couple of weather events are going to be scripted. So then I'm going to turn over this cloudy day. The weather card will mark each passing day. The bottom of the card indicates the weather of the day. When an event is triggered, read the top card of the event deck before taking the town action. Some of the weather cards will have this symbol, and then that means that you'll be turning over the event deck. All right, this first card says Arrival. Your party has arrived in a clearing. The forest has thinned as you've gotten closer to the tower that you could see when you were first entering the valley. Between you and the tower, still a distance away, are some rundown foundations. A few walls barely stand, but clearly a community used to exist here. One of the sprites that guided you into the valley tugs your hand and points towards the forest as a large tree falls with a thud across the path you just traveled. It will have to be dealt with. All players must go to the adventure action during the daytime phase. That town action is taken once, but all players will take the corresponding character action. That up-down thing that I was talking about before. When the adventure action is resolved, consult your player journal for next steps. Alright, so normally I would have my run of the board, be able to go wherever I want. This is a cooperative game, so there's no blocking of worker spaces. Just follow general rules, and everybody should be able to do something constructive. But since I'm told what to do, I'm going to put my crafter on the adventure spot and have an adventure. The tree that has fallen here will block any further travelers. It certainly won't allow you to leave the valley easily. You'll have to chop it up to remove access to the path and then decide what to do with the lumber. So now you have a choice, and get used to those choices because the adventurers have a lot of choices like that. I could take the lumber to town for material or use it to create a more stable path here and ease travel for the future. So I'm going to choose option B because I like the idea of easy paths. So then the top character says, make adjustments in the town resources by adding or removing the appropriate resource from the designated area. A lot of the cards are going to say that. So then I would have gotten some production and some money, or the equivalent of currency in the game. There's a misprint. This should be more production anyway. So they want to give you a little bit of production to start and some culture because I have made a road to my new fledgling town. Production is tracked over here, so I am going to get 1 production and 1 culture. All right, so now I am ready to do my second action, my second half of an action. Because I took the adventure action, I get this bonus. So then I have this crafter bag, which is going to be the center of her crafting, of course. And how I do that is I get the corresponding token and I put it into her crafting bag. So then I have 1 of every resource in this bag, and now I have a second green resource. There are 5 things that she can make, at least at the beginning of the game. And then there are in various states of progress being made. I picked a couple just to kind of get me started. So then for the second action, I would go into my draw bag and I would draw 3, and I would have some options depending on what I drew. So then I did not pick any any of my green, even though I have 2 green in there. So then for the purposes of the tutorial, anytime I have a non-matching item, I would just put it in there to get it prepped for future crafting. But I do have a couple of items that are matching. So then I would put this back in the bag and I would progress this mallet. There we go. Look at that. I was able to do that. And I would be able to put that in the second row. And I would do the same thing for this idle option over here. So then I would take the idle and I would put that in here. So then in the prototype or in the final version, there will only be limited slots over here. So that would create choices in terms of which items I would create. For the purposes of this tutorial playthrough, there's only one thing to really do, which is advanced items or begin them. As we get into the real game, there will be more and more options. You'll have power-ups to be able to manipulate this a little bit more. So we're just getting started, people. There's a lot more to come. So that is a full round of Mythwind. It's pretty easy. In terms of the worker placement, I would bring it back to end my turn, and then I would begin my next turn with the weather. So then I would take the weather and I would turn it over. I'm going to read another event. And then this says, when you discard this weather card, stack it on the previous day's card so that the weather can be seen as you continue to add them. That means this. So now I'm going to start chaining symbols together. I'll get to the event card in a second. But I did want to mention that there is going to be seasons. Right now I'm playing in spring. There's also summer, winter, fall. And as you can see, there are symbols. As the weather stacks up in terms of the symbol matching, so then you would see the top 3, and then you would match symbol, and you would get some kind of either bonus or I don't think there's any penalties. Maybe a little bit. But for the most part, it's going to be good things that happened relative to the weather. So, good weather, all sorts of advantageous for building and exploring and all that kind of thing. So please keep in mind there's another thing to manage in terms of what's coming up in the symbol matching of the weather deck. A gathering is held to decide the town's first steps. The rain convinces everyone that a roof is needed to make future meetings more agreeable. All right, now the game's telling me what to do. All players must go to the build action in town during daytime. They will build the Longhouse during this turn. The cost to build at the top of the building tile, lower the production resource from the town resources by 1 to place this Longhouse into the build queue. Hey, it's almost as if the game knew what was coming. That production that I got from the event phase in the first is going to be spent to build the Longhouse. Here's another aspect of the management of the game, especially in terms of timing. So I have the Longhouse over here. I've spent my resource, and it tells me where in this queue to put the building. So then this building is basically very easy to make, and you could start it right here. And then players, actually I should probably put my worker there. Let me go ahead and put the worker there to execute that. Haha, there you go. When I progress this will immediately come into play. There are going to be different buildings with different costs. So then the bakery would actually start here, and then I have to do a couple of actions in order to get that going. The school, a little bit harder to build. You can see that there are different buildings that are going to have different times, another layer of management in the game. We are back at the crafter board, and I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff over here. I'm going to put this action. Because I did a build action, I get a construction token for free. And then I'm going to mix that up, and I am going to pull 3. That is going to happen every single turn. The rulebook is actually pretty explicit. Get used to that. That is your fate for as long as you're playing this game. So I have 2 hammers. Wow, look at that. And a book bag. I keep on calling it a book bag. So then I am going to progress this hammer by 2 because I can do that. And then I am going to progress my bag over here by 1. What that does, it helps kind of spread things out, thin things out, so I can get things built. Once I get to here, something will happen, but go ahead and stay tuned to the tutorial to see what happens when an item lands here. All right, so now we have day 3, tutorial 3 from the weather deck. The build icon, I should probably say, that icon over there, is a prompt to advance buildings in the build queue. As the Longhouse advances past step 1, it is built. Place it in town. I got a worker and sprite die. What does that mean? First of all, I have that set of symbols. That won't play in this tutorial, but I did explain how that interacts with this thing. Here is the Longhouse. Once I have completed the Longhouse, so I could have taken an action to finish it, but the event deck gave it to me for free. So then I would get whatever is on the bottom, which are the worker dice that are going to go right here in the Citadel. So we are going to put the Longhouse right there as a completed building. And we now have a sprite and a worker to place. Actually, I would roll these. Ugh. And that is how many uses that I would get if I were to purchase them. So to be clear, these are common to everybody. Anybody can hire them going here to take that action for this cost. But now I have some workers available in the pool. Hamish leans against the Longhouse. Yep, that's solid. Now that this building is done, I've seen a couple of new residents show up, as well as these sprite helpers. We've been chatting, and anyone who needs helpers can come to the tower and hire a worker or a sprite. All right, so here is my yet unnamed crafter. I'm going to put them there, and I'm going to take the hire action. I can hire 1 worker for 2 gold, or I can hire 2 workers for 5 gold, just in case I want to get things going. Let's get things going. It's only the demo, right? So I'm going to spend 5. I'm stuck with the 1 pip, so I'm just going to put them in my ready action for now. All right, so now I've taken the hire action. Let's do the crafter. So I got some workers over here. How it works is, because I took a hire action, I'm able to put an additional scroll into my bag, which I've already done. As you can see, a little bag building effect is building up, so I can kind of predict what I can do here. The workers buff what I am doing, so I can assign them and I can spend a pip, which would be 1 to 0. So you go away pretty soon, so I'm going to put him to the side over there. Or she, could be a she worker. And I can put another token of my choice into the bag, increased bag building. So if I want to put another mallet, because I know I have mallets and I know I'm working on some, I'm going to put mallets into my bag. I can also take a sprite and pull additional tokens out of my bag. I think I'm just going to add the one token for now and see what I get. So those are 3 tokens that I pulled, and those are 3 tokens that I can move along. I did not have purple, so I'm just going to add purple to my bag over there. I am going to move along my mallet. Eventually that will be a completed item, so that would go in my bag. So in this last particular case, the book says, because I'm a little bit low on funds, another thing I could do is I could sell. So I could sell basically anything along the path, and it would be some kind of cost. The prototype here does not indicate the cost, so I'm not going to illustrate that, but that's another way that you can do it. You can use your tokens as raw material, you can use your tokens to advance, and you can also use your tokens to sell, matching things, just in case you need money to fire up future turns. All right, so now that I've completed that, you have to resolve the workers that you did use. So because this was 1 pip, this would just automatically have to get rolled and put back into the tower to be purchased again. But if it was, let's say it was a 3, and I had used its power to become a 2, I can only use 1 pip per turn, by the way. But let's say it ends at a 2, then I would have to pay more money in order to keep them on and return them to my pool. So it would ordinarily be obvious to, take the pips with the highest, but when you have a worker that can do a lot, you have to pay them a lot. So it might be worth just getting that 1 pip, using them, and then putting them back in the tower. All right, now we go to tutorial 4. The game has stopped telling me what to do. It is telling me what to do, but it stopped giving me the hints of the weather cards. So again, this would coordinate with the season tile, but it just tells me to do an event. Hamish catches your attention by the Longhouse. Those workers and sprites are good helpers, huh? With extra help, you may have time to work on your skills. Come by the Longhouse for practice. All right, so that would mean that I will go to the Longhouse and do what it says. That particular icon means that I could ordinarily spend the resources that I had out of the completed pile, which is why it's so important to get completed items. And I would be able to get this skill working fast. But because this is the tutorial and the game is being really nice to me, then getting this using the Longhouse would get me this upgrade for free. Then I would be able to have this as a passive power. This means, some kind of advancement, which we will not be exploring in the tutorial, but it's just an illustration that is how you get upgrades, by building buildings and going to the buildings and coordinating all that. So then because I used a improvement action, I would get a boot, which would go in my bag. There you go. And I would do the same thing that I have been doing. The game is leaving it up to me what I can do over here, but it does want me to focus on getting a completed item eventually. Look at that. I'm able to get a completed item, and I'm able to progress a boot. There you go. And I can progress 3 things. So that I'm going to progress that, and progress that. Once again, there will be limited slots once the game opens up. So that will be choices in terms of which ones to start, which ones to advance, or maybe sell some so I can make room for to progress different items. I can also use my sprite to buff these actions over here. Notice that there are dice slots to buff the actions, get things moving along a bit faster, but I think I'm good for now. We move on. Once again, the game is trusting me to know that I am learning and not just explaining every little thing from the weather deck. The sprite who led you into the valley pulls you aside. She's one of the few who speaks and seems to be a leader among her people. Her name is Fix. Things seem to be progressing nicely. Let me offer you a tip. It is telling us to go to the town improvement section and read card 10. Fix continues. I can see there are plans to build a general store. Good for you, but you lack the resources. Let me help. Magically raise the level of your food, income, and production and culture by 1. Wow. She appears tired from the effort. Take care of your home, it will take care of you. So normally this would cost a certain amount of money to raise. And if you did take this action, which is what you're going to be doing here, you'd be able to spend money to raise one of these things depending on the value. But because this is a friendly tutorial, we are going to be able to move everything and hopefully gives an opportunity to spend that in a minute. And so here is the cost of raising all these actions. That is the improvement. So I would get an additional blue into my bag, which has been put in here. 30 food, 30 gold to raise your food. Holy moly. But only 5 to raise your production. So the game is really telling you that you want you to build. So let's pretend I did that. But actually, I don't have to pretend because they gave it to me for free. That's excellent. And now, so I get to raise my reputation, which is the last thing I'm going to demonstrate in this tutorial. So then I would spend a craft item. So I got this mallet over here. And this indicates how much I can spend, how much I can sell completed items for. So then here is my reputation wheel for hammers. And it would be 1 hammer cost, would get me 4. I would turn this around. So then it would be 1. If I sold 1, it would get me 5. So that would be cool. As I'd move along, it would be 2, and then 2, and then it would be more progress in order to get more stuff. So then I would move that over here. So that would require spending the items. I wouldn't get any money from that, but I would at least set myself up for future turns so that future instances of the item will get me more money if I could sell it. So there's management over there. How much do I increase my reputation? How much do I advance these tokens? How do I build my bag so that I'm able to get the right things at the right time? Tons of management here in Mythwind. And that is going to do it for this tutorial playthrough. I have played through the entire tutorial of the crafter. There is also one available for the farmer, which will be, I'm sure, available on other videos on the Kickstarter. Once again, whether you are watching this before, during, or after the project, you can go ahead and check the show notes and click the link to the Kickstarter page where you'll get all the information that you would want about Mythwind. But it was my pleasure to bring you this playthrough for the tutorial so that you can make an informed decision as to whether you would like to back Mythwind or not. So until next time, this is Jason reminding you that we will see you at the next stop.